Hey there, everyone. It's Barbarian's Riddle here with a brand new segment that I would like to make regularly called Brewing Bad. Now, the concept behind this is that often, anytime I see a new or exciting card or an exciting interaction, I get really excited and I have a million different ideas flowing into my head about how to make a deck around it. Um, as I'm not made of money, nor am I a sponsored streamer of any kind, I can't afford to just put these decks together and see how they'd run and do that. So often what I'll do is I'll try to make a deck list, show it to some friends, have them bounce ideas off of me, and it's more of like a proof of concept or a thought exercise to see how it looks and how you think it'd go. So I wanted to share one of those with you today that I thought was fun and exciting. So let's get started. Okay, so let's get into the deck. Of course, we should start out with the main reason for the deck is to just run a bunch of Planeswalkers and have some fun with it. Starting out the list, we have 2 copies of Dovin Grand Arbiter. Dovin is the new 3-mana Azorius Walker from Guilds of Ravnica, and I feel like he actually does enough work. When he was previewed, a lot of people weren't impressed with him, but he comes down, he makes a thought, regains life, and then he's kind of this weird card advantage engine that he makes by just existing. Realistically, in Modern, I think he's just going to end up eating a lot of damage, but that's fine. I plan to play a 3-mana, gain 1 life, get a Thopter, and then Fog for a creature, and that's fine by me. It may not sound that exciting, but the thing is, if much like with any walker, as you will see, if he's left unchecked, he's just too strong and hard to deal with because he's going to let you essentially dig through time and get 3 of your best cards out of the top 10, and that's pretty sick. After that, we have a card I consider to be an MVP every time I saw him played in a Standard. And that is Gideon of the Trials. Little Gideon does plenty of work. He fogs a creature, fogs a permanent, which is relevant. I have used Gideon of the Trials in the past to fog a Celestial Colonnade or a Raging Ravine, and that feels pretty dope. Other than that, he has a Platinum Angel ultimate, which is fine, and like any other Gideon, he can get in the fray. He can become a beater. That's solid. So we have 2 copies of him. After that, we have 2 copies of Kaya, Orzhov Usurper, another card much like Dovin that everyone slept on and is slowly showing itself to be quite good. Many people were like, oh, it's only good as a sideboard card, and it surely is solid as a sideboard card against graveyard decks. I don't think anyone will argue that. However, and I've posted this many different places, I really liked Kaya from the beginning, and the reason is because she presents something I think every good cheap walker should, and that's inevitability. Dovin doesn't do that as much directly. In a way he does, but not quite. The thing is, I have seen Kaya kill players on Arena. I've seen Kaya kill players in Standard. The deck just needs to be well equipped for it, and the decks that are equipped for it, well, they get to reap the benefits. Often, when I see Kaya Ultimate, even if the deck isn't built to synergize with her Ultimate, they'll usually be a lose 5, gain 5, and that is insane in a 60-card format. In Standard, that's a push you that much closer to victory. In Modern, however, in a shock and fetch land base, it can be devastating. Next up, we have another amazing card, Liliana the Veil. Everyone knows what she does. She's either an Edict when she comes down or a slow card disadvantage engine for your opponent. While it may seem like a nombo to run her in a deck that isn't looking to be hellbent, it's just you have so much card advantage from your other walkers that you're usually just filtering with her, and the advantage she provides is even just a 3-mana removal spell combined with the other synergies that she provides with the deck. It's usually enough. And again, her ultimate is pretty much just a big middle finger to your opponent. Have people won through Liliana's ultimate? Oh, of course. But it's definitely hard when you have half your permanents. After that, we have Liliana the Last Hope. This was more of a diversity include. You're going to notice I had a high 3 CMC curve because I feel like with Planeswalkers, that's the sweet spot. That's where you want to be. As Guy Fieri would put it, that's money. It's like, oh my god, it's awesome. Anyway, Liliana the Last Hope. Her plus ability is removal. That's great. Often she's going to be hindering creature decks, sometimes killing bobs or snaps, and that's great. Her negative ability, her first one you're never going to use. Essentially, you're pretty much playing her like an enchantment with an ultimate. She's constantly going to be crippling smaller creatures or hindering bigger ones until you hopefully get a zombie army. Or, again, she's going to be eating hits. You're essentially playing a lot of 3-mana fogs in this deck, which, again, I'm not upset with. Every time I've played Superfriends, that ends up being how you kind of have to play. After that, we have one who epitomizes the idea of being there to get hit in the face, and that is Dovin Bond. Dovin Bond, during his time in Standard, briefly was used in control decks before Big Daddy Tef came into play, and I actually ran Just Guy Super Friends in Standard, and Dovin Bond did work. He wasn't amazing, but he kind of did what you expected a Blue White Walker to do. He slowed down your opponent's aggressive creatures, or he drew cards and gained life. I'm planning to use this to... I mean, honestly, I'm happy using either of those two modes depending on what I'm going against. If I'm against a creature deck, -3, -0 is significant. And if it's something like a Monstrous Whisper, I'm fine with that. If it's like nuking I guess not nuking. I guess if it's neutering a Phoenix, again, I'm fine with that. He's just a really solid walker. I enjoy him. And that's why I wanted to run a one of, because, again, these are all legendary permanents, so you need diversity. Speaking of that, we have Gideon, ally of Zendikar. Again, you all know what Gideon does. He poops out knights. He can swing like other Gideons, or he can make an anthem. Unless you're going heavy on tokens, depending on like what your build is or what the situation's calling, like you're making tokens with Dovin, you're making tokens with Gideon, you're probably not going to use the anthem, but it's there if you need it. Next up is greatest of them all, Jace the Mind Sculptor. Because this is essentially a trade binder build, aka this is what I had on hand, I'm running one Jace the Mind Sculptor. I think ideally you'd want to go up to two, just because the amount of versatility and card selection he's going to give you. But as we all know, Jace's power has gone down significantly since he's been reintroduced to Modern. Everything just got better around him, and it was hard for the old man to keep up. Jace is still amazing. He's removal. He's card draw. He's he synergizes really well with Leon the Veil, because when you get your opponent top decking, you're essentially deciding where your opponent's going to top deck. Fate Sealing is great, but he's not as much there anymore. However, the next card that essentially replaced him as like the king of control walker finishers is Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. Again, if you play any standard or any modern, you know Teferi, you moan every time you see him resolve, and you're like, do I have removal in hand, or is he going to be forced to bounce one of my things, and can I kill it after? Teferi's just a card advantage engine. Again, he's sick removal. He's a deep tuck on a non-land permanent, which is amazing, because he's going to be versatile in every matchup. Sometimes you're tucking a Goyf, and sometimes you're tucking their Search for Escanta. And before you say at 5 mana they should flip their search by now, again, you're running Kaya. You're not always going to have Kaya out, but you are running main deck Exile Graveyard stuff, so it's not entirely a guaranteed thing, and unless they're like going deep with Thought Scours like in Phoenix, it might not happen. Anyway, Teferi's a good card. I don't need to sell you on him. Everyone knows he's money. Yeah. Next up, we have the Spell Suite. Now, because the deck is so creature-light, most of the spells are just interaction. And why wouldn't they be? Why wouldn't you want interaction in your deck? Because you're going to try to protect your walkers, which in a sense are another layer of protecting yourself. So we have 3 Fatal Pushes. Fatal Push is Fatal Push. It's 1 mana removal. It gets rid of low drops. It's the Goyf killer. It's the reason Goyf is not the king of Modern anymore, among other reasons. It kills the Thing in the Eyes. It kills Goblin Guides. If you sack land and play Fatal Push, it kills something bigger. Yeah, push is where you want to be. After that, we have Path to Exile. Only 3 of. Now, a lot of people ask me why I wasn't running Path to Exile versus Fatal Push. More Path to Exile and dropping Fatal Push. The reason for that is actually really simple. While you do want universal removal for creatures and everything, Path to Exile does have the problem of it ramps your opponent's land, and I do not like that for early game interaction. You do definitely need Fatal Push with the Phoenix and Dredge in the format. You do want Exile interaction, and the land is usually minimal, but it does add up. And if you're running even a light control build, the extra mana can be actually really annoying because your walkers aren't matching them like they're supposed to. After that, we have 2 main deck Thoughtseize, and that's just because, again, our deck is super fragile. As a Super Friends deck, you're resilient to a lot of things, but there's a few things that can just destroy you. There are certain creature decks. There are certain... there's just a lot of things that a turn 1 Thoughtseize can fix and set up for you. It also lets you know which walker's more important. Like, if you turn 1 Thoughtseize an opponent, you're like, oh, look, it's a Phoenix deck. Well, I better prioritize getting Kaya out or representing something I may or may not have. That's just common sense. The next card is a bit of a spice include. Well, it looks like that at first, but it actually makes a lot of sense. So it's 3 copies of Angel Song. Angel Song is a fog. It's a 2-mana fog. So you're like, why wouldn't I run Holy Day or Fog? Well, this one has 2 colorless cycling. So the reason I like Angel Song in the deck is because, well, look at it this way. There are going to be matches where you're not going to need any of this creature interaction. You're going against hard control, blue-white control, and you're like, oh boy, my push means they'll never activate their Colonnade. Cool. Great. Angel Song's very similar. Angel Song, you want to protect yourself, protect your walkers. It mitigates combat damage because it's the deck that the type we're going to struggle the most against. But because it has Cycle 2, it's never going to be dead, which is great. After that, we have a series of one-ofs. We have one Logic Knot. Logic Knot's just a good universal spell. If I'm realistic, I mean, I shouldn't be using the walkers as face shields, but that's pretty much what they're going to be. You're going to have a lot of cards in the graveyard, and Logic Knot's just a good spell. I have one Negate. Now, logically speaking, you think it'd be Essence Scatter, but there's a possibility my opponent will have Assassin's Trophy. With the walkers can control creatures on board just fine. I can use a board wipe to get rid of creatures on board just fine. I would struggle if I didn't have Negate to get rid of it, stop an Assassin's Trophy or something similar. Assassin's Trophy is really good. It also stops other walker decks. If a Tron is curving out, it stops Karn coming down, which is great. Negate's just a good spell. It's a classic. Don't fix what's not broken. After that, we have one copy of Timely Reinforcements. Now, Timely Reinforcements, again, it's a one-of just because I feel like having tokens on the field is really good. Having token blockers, you're almost never going to have more creatures on the field than them. And gaining your own life back, well, it's just, I mean, you play Timely Reinforcements against it or with it in control. It's an amazing stabilizer. We have one copy of Cryptic Command. So, again, this is Trade Binder. I own one copy. The land base is a little greedy, so it's actually really easy to cast Cryptic Command. I feel like Cryptic Command's a solid choice. There's nothing wrong with Cryptic Command. It's one of the most powerful cards in Modern. It also fulfills the role of being a fog, card advantage counter, and I mean, just everything. After Cryptic Command, we have Hieroglyphic Illumination. Pretty straightforward. Early game cycle, late game draw cards. It's fine. It gets you there, and it's never dead. After that, we have Supreme Verdict, because Supreme Verdict says F the board, everything's gone. You could probably run Wrath of God in place of this if you want to. I was considering that, but Supreme Verdict can't be countered, and the last thing you want to do is be against a Spirits player and go like, okay, nice Wrath, Vile, okay, Mausoleum Wanderer. Can you pay the one? Oh, no, okay. You don't see Spirits as much anymore, but remember, there are still Curse Catchers out there, and, they'll get you. Let's see. After that, we have 2 copies of Sell the Wreckage. The reason I'm so high on copies of Sell the Wreckage is not just that I own so many copies of them from playing in Standard. I legitimately like it. I feel like, especially with Phoenix and Dredge in the meta, even Death Shower, Gourmet Angler, a little less so, Sell the Wreckage is a really nice way to punish people for swinging out at you. And the thing is, they're going to be inclined to swing as much as they can into your walkers because they want to do damage to you and they still have to worry about you. Because of this, Sell the Wreckage is ideal because they're incentivized to swing out more often than not. So, 2 copies of Sell the Wreckage. Pretty good. We have creatures. I actually run one creature. That is Snapcaster Mage. Snapcaster Mage is good. I have a large amount of instants and sorceries, so there's no reason not to run at least one Snapcaster. It's an Ambush Viper. Ideally, the move is like Snap, Path, Block. And it's just that one little itty bit of advantage in getting a blocker and additional piece of removal that I like Snapcaster Mage. After that, we go to the enchantments. We have 2 Search for Azcanta. It's a light control build, and Search for Azcanta and Azcanta the Sunken Ruin are just good. I can pretty much dig and pull out any of my walkers when I'm using Azcanta the Sunken Ruin. There's so few dead hits with it. I guess Snap is a dead hit. Okay. Other than that, it's almost always good. You're gonna be happy with it. You're drawing. Given that's a 3-color base, you're going to be either drawing what you need with Search for Azcanta or digging for just more passive advantage that the Superfriends provide. Other than Search, we actually have one more enchantment, and this is a Spice include because I did this fairly well in Standard, which I understand Standard's a different format. It's one Oath of Teferi. For a lot of people, Oath of Teferi is a win more card, and they're not wrong. However, it creates this weird situation. So Oath of Teferi itself flickers a non-land permanent, and that sounds like really unexciting. But sometimes, you've had to tick down on Liliana. She's at 1, so she's at risk for dying easily. Or same with Teferi. So you play with the Teferi, and you blink that one out, and it'll come back at the end of your turn. However, after that, it makes every plus ability or every removal or hindrance ability on a walker backbreaking. So when I used to run Jeskai Super Friends, even Dovin Bond, who's easily the weakest walker in the deck, you're like, okay, Dovin Bond, next turn, okay, he's not dead. Oh, the Teferi. I'm like, I'll give your one big creature -6, -0 by activating the plus ability twice. Oh, I play a Gideon. Okay, I'm going to fog your 2 creatures. Now, this isn't EDH, so in a 60-card format, fogging 2 creatures or like crippling 2 creatures is actually kind of good. It's kind of relevant. I mean, it also it's a lot of fun. Double discard Liliana. Like, we're all discarding cards here. There's just so much value. Or you're like doubling up on Kaya triggers, and Kaya activates herself really fast. Or doubling plus on Dovin Bond triggers, making 2 Thopters in 1 turn. Or rather, getting two loyalty counters for each creature that connects with your opponent. There's just such insane value with the Teferi that the ceiling on so high, and then the floor of it just flickering a land, so you have 1 more mana available, so it essentially costs 4. That's fine. That's fine. After that, let's go. Okay, guys, let's get to the lands. In the land spot, as far as man lands go, we have 2 copies of Celestial Colonnade and 1 Creeping Tar Pit. What these provide is another way to have a blocker, so that way we don't die and our walkers don't take as much damage. As well, it's another option to like possibly sneak out a win, kill other walkers, get some damage in against your opponents. As many control players will tell you, Celestial Colonnade does kill. After that, we have a pretty straightforward land base as far as like fixing our very, very greedy mana base. We have 3 Flooded Strand, 3 Polluted Delta, and 1 Marsh Flats, because fetching land is great. It fixes mana, it makes it easy, it's versatile, it's only a little painful, and it only really screws you against burn. Okay, as far as like shocklands go, we have Godless Shrine as a 1/of, 2 Watery Graves, and 2 Hallowed Fountains. The reason for this was it was just a nice, easy way to fix mana without having too many shocklands in your mana base. We do have to respect burn to an extent, but we are a slower deck, so we can't slow ourselves down too much. Consequently, I only have 1 Drowned Catacomb and 1 Glacial Fortress and no Isolated Chapel. I want check lands to help fix our mana base. It's okay to have an open hand with a check land put into play tap. It won't punish us as much. That said, I don't really feel comfortable running those. You also note there's no fast lands in this mana base. I own Darkslick Shores. I own a Concealed Courtyard, and I don't own any Seachrome Coast. I just didn't feel like they were a good fit for the deck. And finishing it off, we have 2 Field of Ruins. Well, not quite finishing off, but we have 2 Field of Ruins because Tron is a real deck. Sometimes we need to fix mana, and sometimes you're blowing up a Search Kanta. Field of Ruin is an amazing card. It's replaced Ghost Quarter in a lot of decks, and it just does work. As far as basics go, because you need something to fetch when you don't want to take damage, or you need a Field of Ruin, you need something to resolve with your path, or if Gideon gets path, we have 2 islands, 1 plains, and 1 swamp. As far as the sideboard goes, I do not have a sideboard made for it because, as I said, this is a proof of concept. Consequently, I do have a few suggestions for the sideboard. Just normal control elements, 2 more Thoughtseizes. Ceremonious Rejection isn't a bad choice. I like Leyline of the Void because the new Mulligan rule coming up makes turn 0 effects very, very appealing. If Phoenix decks keep choosing to lean into Pyromancer's Ascension, Terramander, and Snapcaster's Main, Graveyard deck, Mass Graveyard Hate seems more and more appealing because that'll hit that, Dredge, and any other decks that mess with their graveyards. I also believe Oath of Liliana, while not good main deck because it can be kind of dead, is in this weird spot. So at 3 CMC, Oath of Liliana doesn't do as much as you'd like it to do unless you're getting the most value out of it. So the front half, it's a 3-mana Edict at sorcery speed. That's fine. Against Boggles, that's pretty funny. Against Infect, also pretty dope. The back half, though, is really solid all the time. But again, for 3 mana, I don't know if I can really justify just the back half, in matchups where the front half isn't going to make a difference. So making zombies with every Planeswalker you play is pretty good. I think that it's just like, hey, a free blocker with every Planeswalker you play. That's really good. I think that's amazing. But if you're playing it onto an empty board against control, you're going to feel bad. If you're playing onto this against this, it's just not going to feel great. That's why it's not main deck. Anyway, guys, that's my deck tech. I hope you had a good time listening. if you notice a difference in the tone of my voice or the quality of audio, I did have the last half of this audio just disappear from my recording. So, F me. Other than that, I mean, I'm pretty happy with this. This is a deck I own all the pieces for, save like timer reinforcements. So I may just leave this up one day and let you guys know how it plays. Anyway, I hope you had fun watching and keep playing. Have a good time. And I don't have an outro catchphrase, so I don't know. Have fun.